It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Lynne Pedersen. Lynne is a thought leader in the adolescent mental health field. She developed the foundation that enabled 2 adolescent residential programs to emerge as the largest and arguably the finest in the nation. She is celebrated for her unrivaled passion and commitment to the advancement of mental health services. In 2015, after devoting over 3 decades to the adolescent residential treatment space, she shifted her focus. Lynne had taken note of the staggering number of young people waitlisted for treatment, and she talks about this at length in her interview. In her view, there was clearly a void in the support landscape for our youth. The One Exchange was launched shortly thereafter, which was the first campus-based restorative justice program of its kind. Students who commit an infraction punishable by suspension can now exchange that very suspension for attendance at one meetings. Successful completion of the program allows for a student's misstep not to appear on their record, which is true restorative justice. A moment of poor judgment converted into an opportunity to rise instead of fall, or in many cases fail. Then, Lynne conceptualized Alter the Course, or ATC retreats, after bearing witness to the powerful transformational shifts of her One participants. Ever the innovator, she drew from the long list of success stories, the young lives that were shifted within the space that One creates. She asked herself a simple question. If these lives can be altered so dramatically with an hour a week of facilitated opportunities, what could happen in one full, intentionally curated week? And she talks about it in the interview. She basically pulled what she describes as the best pieces of a residential experience, but without the therapeutic or clinical drive. Now, although Lynne has also received numerous honors throughout the years, I'm going to hit fast forward on this interview so you can just hear her talk about her journey and how she got to where she is now. I'll also preface that I didn't do a lot of speaking myself on this one because Lynne was on a roll, and quite bluntly, she knew the assignment and executed her story perfectly. So let's get to the interview now with Lynne on today's edition of Success is Subjective. Lynne, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Yes, you're here. This is so exciting.
Yeah, I am so excited. First off, I'm so excited to see you. And I'm excited about talking about success because you know what? It's not an easy thing to get, but when you work for it, it's like it's everything. It's everything. So, I mean, I'm ready. Let's get to it, sister.
Well, and what we're fighting against, which is kind of like a little bit of a sneak preview for what you are doing, which is pretty badass, if you ask me.
Thank you.
Is that we are pushing young people up against a vision of what success is supposed to look like, and that is creating stifled creativity, just like young people that are really stuck. But I don't want to belabor the point right now because I do want to actually make sure we have an opportunity to really get into what you're doing now, which is awesome. But I don't know your full backstory. And I think sometimes when people are doing really stinking cool things, right, they've noticed a gap, a need, that there's a lot of backstory to how they got to that place where they were able to see that, have the vision, the insight, the awareness to then create that new opportunity. So if you're okay telling our listeners, where did you actually grow up? Because I don't even know that story. And then what I really want to get into is like, if you were to have like, kind of like the chapters, like as themes in your life, what were some of those themes leading up to what you're doing now?
Okay. Well, I grew up in a little town, and it really is, called Sierra Madre, California. But I want you to know the most amazing thing is I was about 40 before I realized that I was born on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. So I was a little pissed when I figured that out because I think I was meant to be a star, and I didn't know. I never paid attention. I didn't look at my birth certificate. So, I dealt with that. But I grew up in Sierra Madre, which is this tiny little town in California, nestled up in the San Gabriel Mountains. Like if you've ever seen the Rose Parade, we're right near there. It's above the Santa Anita racetrack. But it's this tiny little town. And I think it's really what helped form me. but I want to let any parent or person off the hook. I had an intact family. I went to private Catholic school for 8 years. I lived in a little town that was very, very safe. And I still ended up being a teenager that the minute I got some freedom, I was like off the mark and running. And so I don't know, I think about it many times, like what was my motivation? But I do know, honestly, that like I think back to the moment when I convinced my parents. I was accepted into the all-girls Catholic school, and I was like, it's not going to really work for me, So I convinced my parents it was much more cost-effective to let me go to public school, which was Pasadena High School, which I also was very aware there were boys and many things there, that I was going to have access to at that all-girls school. And just to tell you that, like, I started high school in all honors classes and showing up. And within 3 months, I was hanging out in the parking lot with the unsavories. We used to call them the parking lotters. We thought that was really cool. And, immediately got into dangerous behaviors like drugs and alcohol. And it wasn't my plan, because I went to Catholic school and we had religion books where everybody of all colors held hands and you were never going to do drugs. Like everything was like love and acceptance. And then I got to school and it was like a war zone, and there was so much opportunity and I had no tools to regulate. And, when I think about that now, I think about the kids now, like having 2 years of stunted growth, social growth due to COVID. That I look at where I was as just an adolescent and the choices that I made. And we have a generation that's growing up here right now that I really believe is going to ultimately be the most resilient, but they do not, and they have not developed the internal coping skills to master this life that I feel like my generation, and I'm old, just in case everybody's wondering, like I was telling Joanna when she was here, there's actually dirt that I am actually older than now, which is upsetting. And it's another podcast for another time. But I do apologize to the kids, that I encounter. I've worked with the adolescents for 39 years, actually 40 years now. And I feel like right now in this moment, it is not a unique perspective, but it is my perspective that we've given these kids the pandemic, school shootings, social media, opioid epidemic, all these things where I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. Honesty seems to be like, maybe, honor. Oh, I don't know. Am I going to get something for that? Right. So this world that these kids are growing up in is so difficult. And so when your child, if there's parents listening, or when your student or somebody says, a teenager says, you do not understand me. You do not understand me. This is the first generation that's going to be right, because they know we don't. They know we don't have social media figured out. They know the adults are constantly fighting so no decisions get made. They know they honestly don't feel safe in this world. So I think back to, my origins of growing up in that small town and the trouble I got into when I had everything that would be given to me to be able to have an okay life. And what happened for me is, that behavior ended up really tanking me. My friends were like going off to college, getting married. I was 20, like going to the Troubadour and the whiskey, getting into like the really cool rooms. So just so you know, I was really cool. Okay. And my life was going nowhere. Right. And my parents, everyone tried to help me. I'm like, please, I've got it. I have got this. I had nothing. Okay. I drove my mother's flesh tone Mustang that like would go, when you turned it off. Like I had nothing. My parents were like, we don't know what to do with this one. They had 5 kids. I was that one. I was that one that disrupted everything. And here's what I knew and what I'll never forget, and what I carry into the work I do with adolescents today, is that I had a ring of fire around me. And I have to tell you, I don't know what it was about. I didn't have any huge trauma. I was just me. My parents, what they did, their love, everything, they didn't cause it. Borrowing from Al-Anon, they couldn't cure it. I had a struggle going on inside me that I don't know what it was, but when I drank or I did drugs, I felt free. And I didn't know how to access that otherwise. And then when the time came to stop, I didn't know how to stop. And this ring of fire around me, there was only one counselor in high school who actually tried to step into that. I'll never forget him, Mr. Smith from Pasadena High School. And there was a security guard. He was like 7 foot tall. Okay, he probably wasn't, named Stan. And those were the two men that were like, oh, girl. But I felt like they saw me, but they couldn't control me. And no one was willing to step into that ring of fire. They kind of just wanted me to go away. And somehow by divine intervention, and I say that, at 20 years old, I went to get help, and I went to a treatment center on my own. Back then, they would call it buying the $25,000 big book, because it was very 12-step chemical dependency focused. I had people telling me I didn't have a problem. I really shouldn't go. And I will tell you, the reason I went wasn't noble that I had a moment of like, I just really think I'm not living my life correctly. It was because Roger, who I was dating, got sober. He went there and he came out and said he couldn't hang around me anymore because I was a user. And I was like, that is so insulting. I don't even know what that is, And I was like, well, okay. Being a good little manipulator, I was like, well, what is this? So what do I need to do here? And he's like, go meet my counselor. I did not know it was an intervention. Right. And I ended up telling this guy everything about me. And he's like, well, I really think you should come and get help. And I was like, oh no, you just want my money. And what money? I was driving my own flesh-toned Mustang. I was working at a trust fund, and I'd call in sick every other day, right? And all I had to do was file things. And I was like, I can't. The alphabet, it's too hard. So what ended up happening was, again, that's the golden thread that sometimes we can't see in our lives. And if there's parents listening, if your kids are a wreck and you are like, I don't know, love can't cure it, right? But continue to love them. They don't know either. I was so lost and I looked hopeless. I looked like I was never going to get it, like one thing after another. And I will tell you, it's a moment that can shift a life. And I went in that program for all the wrong reasons. So I don't care why, kids get help. I don't care if you've bribed them. I don't care. Maybe I stand alone in that. I stand in good company because I got help for all the wrong reasons to get a guy. I'm sorry. Don't let that scare you. Okay. But I came out and I didn't get Roger, but I got sober and I got a new community that wrapped around me. And back in that period of time, I knew immediately I wanted to work with adolescents, and I had an opportunity within that program to go back and work there after 90 days. Today, people would be worried about that, but it was such the perfect thing for me. And I started as a counselor. I ended up as assistant aftercare coordinator. Well, I started on the floor driving kids to meetings, to be clear. They didn't start me as a counselor. No one be afraid. But I worked my way up through there. And UCLA at the only time was the up and coming thinkers in California with it was called chemical dependency at that time. And I, went there and got certified in chemical dependency studies and counseling, and was trained by John Bradshaw, who has family systems work that's pretty incredible, face to face with John, and had some of the greatest mentors, and was trained at the Johnston Institute. And that is the intervention that does say, just get in the car, you're going. And we put on the child lock. I want parents to know, I'm going to stand in and say this really hard. It is breaking my heart, the horrific programs that were out there unchecked. But I also want to stand in real hard and say, you know what? Sometimes you can't say to an adolescent, hey, you're blowing up your life and you're breaking everything in my house and stealing from us. And would you like to go get help? Because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It really is sometimes standing in to save kids' lives. But the people that go, transport companies, people that go help, that are trained and good and kind. These are people that the kids know, ooh, I got to go with this guy. And then they end up hugging them when they drop them off. This is horrible what is being reported. And absolutely there is truth to it. Never did I work anywhere like that because it wouldn't happen. But I do want people to know that it breaks my heart for parents who do have, a young person that's out of control. So in that, to say, I progressed through my career, and I ended up helping build two of what is the infrastructure of two of the largest adolescent residential programs in the nation. So I started driving kids to meetings and made many a mistake and it was very dramatic because I was very newly sober, and people loved me through that. And I ended up helping build two of the largest residential programs in the nation. And I will tell you how I did that. Sometimes being paralyzed in absolute fear, sometimes looking around the room and thinking there were so many people better than me. What I did was I followed my passion no matter what. And when I made a mistake, which I made money, I'd pick myself up, dust myself off, and keep moving forward. because we're humans. Everyone makes mistakes. And what I did in this career to where I am now is that I really practiced this principle of never giving up, never giving up. And that's what brought me forward to, I was actually, I'm clearly from California, and I helped build what is this nationwide program in Connecticut. And when I was there helping build this infrastructure, it was a program that, again, was going to become very large. And I will let you all know that I am a professional and I'm very good at what I do, apparently, because they're two of the largest. But I'm a mom first. And I was noticing that the wait lists were insanity. Kids who were coming to us, I'm like, why couldn't we get to them sooner? Why do the parents have to go from like a pediatrician who may be prescribing something to be helpful, but it's not their area of expertise, right? So we've got kids on some meds that may or may not fit. We've got parents trying to get help because somebody tells them to go over here and somebody tells them to go over here. And I can tell you that most kids at outpatient level, when they're struggling, have a really hard time making a change because they go to an hour or 2 hours of outpatient and then they go back to everything they're doing at school. So I do believe in residential treatment, but I also felt like there wasn't a non-threatening space to just stop. So when I left the program in Connecticut, it was a real decision. Am I going to go help and build another residential program? And I thought, no. And so I put my money where my mouth was and I sold my house and I launched what is my nonprofit, because I have two programs. And it is, the overarching name is One Recovery, and our name on campuses is One on Campus. And it's about the power of one person connecting with another, and created this support group that became an alternative to suspensions. And it gave kids an opportunity, if they were up for suspension, they could voluntarily opt in to go to 8 consecutive meetings. And in these meetings, it's not 12-step, it's not therapy. The kids come into a room. We might be listening to music. We might be watching a film clip. It might be, a little clip from Euphoria. It might be something that like, I want to spark a real conversation. We may talk about, substances. We may talk about weed. And in that room, the kids are able to say, hey, Lynn, I love smoking weed. And I can say, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, I hear you. What does it do for you? What does it do for you? And they'll say what it does for them. I'm like, that's so cool. But what I want to tell you is someday you're going to learn, like a bad relationship, there are things and people that you will love. But if they're not going to bring you to the place you need to be in your life, you got to let them go. And I just tell them, look, buddy, I hope you make the choice to not smoke weed. And it's done in a very non-threatening way. And like, hey, why don't you Google what it's doing to your brain? Hey, these weed pens, why don't you look at all the chemicals that are in it? And also, we really talk a lot now about the level of psychosis and the amount of kids that are experiencing psychosis due to, the level of THC in these weed pens. And also the early onset or the activation of schizophrenia. So these are factual things that are happening to adolescents at an explosive rate. And I think the numbers didn't get out there because of COVID, right? Weed pens were taken off during COVID. Kids were having psychosis from weed, and the ERs were backed up. The reporting wasn't there. And now finally the reporting started to catch up, that people can understand that yes, kids can go into psychosis from marijuana. So all this to say, my progression was trying to always have my finger on the pulse of where I could create a change or create a space. Because One Recovery, you're right, like it didn't exist. That space where kids could walk into a room, they don't have to identify by a diagnosis. They just get to come in and experience a pause, get the opportunity to consider things differently, and then go out and give it a shot. And what I saw, Joanna, what I witnessed was bullies who were sent to me, right? And my team, like they'd come for 8 weeks, and all of a sudden this kid who was a bully was the most compassionate kid in the group. And he wasn't bullying anymore. I watched girls, many like with like little sweaty hands, who came in just like paralyzed with fear. Cause it's not just kids that are suspended, like other kids can come in, right? Or up for suspension. So the kids would come in and they'd be really nervous. And those would be the girls that turned into greeters at the door. And kids were opting. At the end of every one meeting, you make a commitment to do something you don't want to do. It has to be a stretch, something to move your life forward. And, no one's going to check you. So if you don't do it, it's on you. But the kids will say, okay, tomorrow I'm not going to smoke weed at school. Now, I can say that in certain groups and people are like, that's horrific. But it's actually not because they're willing to consider stopping because I can't control them to not stop. And kids were stopping. This year, I have 2 boys. One is graduating from Vanderbilt, another from Loyola Marymount. And they came through the program because they got caught smoking weed off campus and got the opportunity to enter into one. So I see the changes. And also to let you know, like, I measure success of this program very differently. Like, I can measure that and go, how amazing is that? Like, a kid had an opportunity, so he didn't get kicked off his sports team. He didn't get suspended, so he didn't get put behind in school. These 2 boys, 100%, had they been suspended and kicked off their sports teams instead of coming to one, those kids would have ended up in a treatment center. I can guarantee you that. So I was looking at this and I was like, hey, what would happen if I developed, like if kids could have like what they get in an hour here in like a retreat for 7 days? What if I took all the best parts that I saw at residential, I'm just going to steal the good parts, and created this 7-day badass retreat where kids come to develop the story of who they are. And I don't care if they're in trouble because they got caught at school. I don't care if they're just living this life and not being able to move it forward, or parents don't actually know what's going on with their kid. It's for every kid that needs that something. It's this level of care that was missing. So I thought, what if I created this 7-day intentional retreat? They come, they develop the story of who they are, even if they don't think they know who they are, because I don't want them relying on social media and Instagram and all this to define them. Like, tell us who you are. And if you don't know, that's cool too, because we're going to figure it out. And over the 7 days, they end up like with, they pick a medium so they can write a song. That one of the kids took a surfboard and created a timeline on it. They can do a little film clip. I think you saw when you were here, one of the girls took a little paper cup and collected flowers everywhere she was during the week and used that to tell the story of who she was. There's no right or wrong. It's your story. But it gets them to go in, and there is no traditional therapy. I do have clinical oversight. Our enrollment form will catch any, child or young adult, teenager or young adult. They're separate weeks, by the way. So teens run some weeks and then young adults are others because they really, they have a totally different mindset. The young adults kind of almost have a path or they want to get somewhere. And the teens are like, I don't even know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. It's a different thing. So, but in that's where we're able to use the enrollment form. For any kids that may not meet criteria for this level of engagement, like somebody who's actively self-harming, active suicidal ideation, use of opiates, anyone like that, we will help you or work with whoever referred you to get you to the higher level of care that you need. Then you could come here. But we want to make sure everybody's safe because it's a level of engagement. And we use that enrollment form to curate the week. So we had a girl that wanted to be a child psychiatrist. And so we contacted Dr. Timothy Fong at UCLA. I think I told you that. And we brought the group. So she's in a group of 8. The whole group goes to UCLA. They get to see the Cannabis Research Institute, which had some, real meaning to some of them. And she had that struggle as well. And she got to sit there not only and meet Dr. Timothy Fong, but his residents, ask questions. They just come off of a research study about psychosis, the increase in the number of psychosis. So she got to hear all this. So not only did she get the model that, like, if you continue to smoke weed, I don't know that you're actually going to end up being a psychiatrist because you got to be on point, but also got such an education from researchers about what's happening. And in that session, 2 other boys that were there for music. We ended up going to the Village Recording Studio, which is where everybody from Fleetwood Mac to Snoop Dogg has recorded. They don't do tours, but they do them for us, which is amazing because we have this secret weapon. Her name is Candy Finnegan. And she has all these amazing connections for us. And we got to bring those boys there. But I will tell you what was the greatest impact for them was sitting in there with Dr. Timothy Fong, because that group, a lot of the kids were, addicted to weed and thought it helped manage their anxiety. And it did not. And those boys walked out of there, and that was a New Year's Eve session. They have not smoked weed. And they thanked Dr. Fong because he freaked them out, just with that. And they were like, Lynn, when they came in, they're like, Lynn, look, hey, we're here. We want to do the music thing because we're going to meet producers too. They got to write songs. They got to record. All of this is weaved in. They're all together. Everybody's kind of got this path and they all get to benefit from each other. And those were the two boys that were really committed. But on top of it, like just seeing the shift and the connection. And that was a young adults group, and watching them like, in the evening, instead of going to pick up their phones, they'd sit around this table and they built a puzzle. Like, when's the last time you saw a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds like on a, Wednesday night building a puzzle? So it's all about connection. And so I think the best way to describe this is like creating the 7-day retreat. It's called Alter the Course, ATC Retreats. People can find it at atcretreats.com. What we're doing is creating an intentional pause where teens and young adults get to consider things differently and be inspired. You're not your struggle if you have one. If they're in this life and they're just not connecting, it's a way to connect. And we're super passionate about it. And this is the greatest part of my career. And I will tell you, in an issue of talking about success, we set these kids up where they create a blueprint for living when they leave. Like, they have bullet points of what they know they need to do, and if they choose to do it. Because what I say is whatever your thing is, you can do 7 days. You can come stay at this retreat for 7 days. And if their issue is anxiety, look, we're going to sit with you. When you have that paralyzing anxiety, for parents out there who are going to pick up their kids from school, or they're afraid their kids aren't going to be able to go on to college because they can't get through a day without like crippling anxiety, pick up the phone, call me. We are having the greatest success because we sit with them. Right? Like, we sit in that anxiety and we're like, buddy, you know what? We're right here. You're going to be okay, because you can't die from that feeling of anxiety. They only feel like they're going to. And when we push through it and then distract them with like, hey, let's go out to the bonfire. Hey, let's do this. And they have 2 days where they realize, oh my God, like, I was able to do everything. I'm not anxious. And we give them the clue. Everyone has anxiety. Everyone feels anxious. You're not mentally ill because you have a feeling. That's actually adolescence. I just really want to remind people that adolescence is not a diagnosis. It's still a stage of development. So these kids are going to have mood swings. And when they fear them, they become bigger. So we just want to give them the space to just land. And also, I'll say, the kids that are here, and listen, everybody, like kids, anybody under 30 is a kid to me. So just, the kids who land here, who are here, they land in their bodies. And we also get to be able to say, hey, 22% of the kids and young adults that have come here, we have sent to a higher level of care while they're here. It might be that they need a little more help for their anxiety, or we've been really clear that, this might not be enough, but they trust us. And every single one of them has gone with buy-in, where I can guarantee if they would have gone straight to get more help, it wouldn't have happened. And the parents too. As parents, we're afraid, are we making the right decision? So basically in this situation, it gives that pause, not just and that reset for the kids and this just dose of inspiration. It gives the parents a chance to pause while their kids are here, reset, recharge, and go, wait, what is our plan? Because being caught up if there is a problem or a struggle and you're trying to fix it yourself, sometimes the greatest thing you can do is get back up on the curb, exhale, just take a second and look at it from a different point of view. But every teen, every young adult that comes through here, like, we are so interested in getting them on track to define what is success for them. What is it that they want out of this life? How can we help them get it? And I believe this when I tell them, and I mean it. You can have anything you want in this life, anything. You just have to be willing to work for it. And you know what? It might be harder for you. Okay, that sucks. Okay, let's just put that out there. But so what? Now what? Let's get to it. So it's hard. Okay, go. It was easier for somebody else. I know. I hate that. It took me 7 years to launch ATC retreats by never giving up, by when my head was like, it's not going to happen. And then when I was ready to roll, COVID hit. No one really loved my idea about bringing kids together, right? And I just didn't give up, because what I believed was this was the space that was missing. And shifts are occurring. And it is just like the greatest gift that I get to experience this. We're in Malibu. We're right above Zuma Beach. And the kids get to walk down in the morning for our version of meditation where they literally lay on the sand, or they stare out at the ocean and they just get to just breathe. And then we start that day like, what are we doing? Are we going to the music studios today? What are we doing? You working on a project? What do you want to do? And it is a week of human connection, of inspiration, and a space where these kids get to form real relationships. And I just want to point out too, like about device management and social media. When they're here, they give us their phones in the morning. On the first day they come, it's like, hey, surrender your phones. And they're like, right? It's like, come on. And then at night, they get them like for a half hour, an hour. I never say how long because I don't really want to be like held accountable by attorney teenagers. The ones are like, you said at 2:00 that we would get it at exactly 5:01. So I'm like, no, you'll get it when you get it. But we give them their phones at night for a certain period of time because we want them to regulate. And I tell you, Joanna, every single retreat, by Wednesday, we put the phones out on the counter in the same place every time. They end up sitting on the counter and they're interacting with each other. And I've never seen more Legos be done by teenagers in my life. They do these things. They find joy in what I was fortunate to have. And I think your generation still was fortunate to have, like where we played board games, we had connection. We learned to talk to people. And that by doing that, this space has given them the ability to realize, number one, I'm all right. I'm all right. And life is actually kind of amazing. Right? And it's going to be hard sometimes, but it's going to be worth it. And this 7 days has blown my mind, right? They cannot do something for 7 days. They know that it's attainable to them. They can do something different for 7 days. And what I tell them is on day 8, you can go back and do whatever you were doing and get whatever you were getting. But what if you didn't? What if you didn't? Like, what if you just went for it? And these kids, like, they're going for it. So I know this is, a very long saga, but it's really, when I think about my ring of fire and how nobody could step in it, I feel like my purpose in this life was to not fear these kids, their anxiety, their depression, their addiction, whatever it is, not fear it, not label it. Just let them be who they are in a safe space so they have the opportunity, if they want to take it, to shift and get that life they so deserve. And it's like, it sounds corny, but I don't even care. It's like literally an honor. Like I am so grateful that to have this space and have these kids here. And I was so grateful that you came out, Joanna, and toured it and that you like got it and you were like, yes. And I was like, I know, right? So yeah.
Cool. I will just say this. I feel like a lot of the questions that I would typically ask for a guest, you just very almost like fine silk. It was like a thread throughout your sharing of your own personal journey, what it is that you're doing now, and just kind of the evolution of what is now kind of this, what is ATC retreats, what's available for these adolescents, for these young adults. And I think that the transparency that you shared too with, like the reality of the percentage that attend that do end up needing a higher level of care, but the majority don't.
Right.
Because this type of experience actually it's what they need, like you said, to now kind of guide them through whatever it is that they want to work towards. You can do anything in 7 days. And I think that's an opportunity for some pretty profound insight. So in the show notes, we will have the website links. We'll have your contact information. I mean, I think that what you are doing is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Not just who you are as a person, but actually, I do think that clearly is a part of it, right? You're so engaging. Like at this point, I just let you talk for 30 minutes because I was like, this is amazing.
I can't stop.
It was awesome.
Stop.
I didn't have to, I didn't have to ask anything. It was just like, you just talked through it all, which also speaks to truly for the first time in this podcast, you understand what our young people are doing, right? Your personal experience coupled with what you did professionally leading to what you've created truly is the epitome of why this podcast exists. So this is me not asking you a question, but really just saying from the bottom of my, not just my heart, my being, thank you for what you have done, what you've created, and what you are providing for space for adolescents and young adults now. And I want more people to check you out. And I'm going to end the interview now because I feel like you and I could probably, I mean, I don't have to say anything. You could probably talk another like hour straight and I would just be sitting here mesmerized. No. But I think, jokes aside, I think that's actually what is also appealing about you is that very clearly that passion, the experience, the purpose is just like, it is bleeding out of you, radiating out of you. And so I didn't have to engage. I literally just sat here and let you take the stage talking about this, like, again, leading to where you are right now, which is awesome. So I am going to end it because I want people to reach out to you. Thank you again for sharing not just that like interwoven personal story with how it led to where you are and what you're doing now, but also just thank you for what it is that you're doing now.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity. I adore you and I respect you. Thank you.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guests for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. Put a face with a voice by accessing their interview on the newly formed successissubjective.org website. If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email Joanna at joanna@successissubjective.org. Be sure to check out the collegealternative.org and lilyconsulting.com websites for additional resources outside of podcasting. If you are listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe to the show. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Last but not least, Success is Subjective is listener-supported, made possible by our team and by you. You can support this podcast by joining the Patreon community at patreon.com/successissubjective. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.
Do you have a teenager or young adult who seems to have lost their way? Maybe they need help navigating adolescence, adulthood, and decisions surrounding higher education. Or maybe they have become withdrawn, their grades are slipping, or they are flat out living a reckless lifestyle, and you're concerned about their health and well-being. If this describes what your teen or young adult is facing, a therapeutic consultant may be able to help. Mental health, addiction recovery, and higher education can all be equally expensive. While information is everywhere, how do you know what option is the best one for your family? Some parents have the time to research and navigate this on their own. Some don't. If the latter applies to you, enter therapeutic consultants. Therapeutic consultants, like Joanna, listen to your family's specific needs and advocate on behalf of your loved one. TCs will research therapeutic resources, recommend treatment programs, and assist during adulthood transitions. Not being affiliated with any program, their support is completely objective and catered toward the best interest of each unique family. To find a qualified therapeutic consultant to work with, check out TCA, also known as the Therapeutic Consulting Association. Their website is therapeuticconsulting.org, all one word. Again, that's therapeuticconsulting.org. Then click the Find a Pro tab up at the top.